I don't know. It's hard. And I just want people to know that, like, sorry, I'm getting like all these messages on my computer. I just want people to know that, like, it's a real challenge, and that just because somebody's life looks really beautiful and perfect on the outside doesn't mean that it's perfect on the inside. And I really just want to raise awareness. One of the reasons why I wrote this book called Anxiety in Wonderland, part of it is just a collection of drawings that I did in art therapy through my many years of doing therapy with my therapist. And I just found that a lot of what I was talking about and sharing was relatable for a lot of people in my life. And I hope that it starts conversations, it makes people curious about anxiety, and it just kind of builds conversations and curiosity and understanding. And I feel like the more we talk about it, the more I feel like I put one hair up and then the other falls down. I feel like the more that we talk about this, the better we will all be for it. So yeah, let's get started. I'm noticing that I can't quite get my screen to work, which is super weird. So I'm gonna try something really quick. Okay, so don't panic. If I disappear, come back. Okay. Let's see. Nope. Did it work? I don't know if it worked because, okay, hold on. I'm having issues. Huge technical errors. I may or may not be live right now. Okay. Okay, cool. It's working. Let's do this. I'm just going to do that. Hi, I'm back. I had just done a quick stream, and it looks like I'm waiting for it to upload and finish on the back end. I had clicked the wrong button. So doing YouTube live stream is super new for me, and I'm using OBS, but I had clicked the wrong button. Anyway, long story short, I'm hoping that it's working now. I think it takes about a minute. Yay! No. What's happening? I'm just gonna keep talking and hope that it changes on that side. Oh, I'll do this. I just realized I did something really dumb. Okay. You'll catch on. You guys, I am a mess. Which I think is... Okay, it's working! I'm back! Okay, I'm a mess. I am so sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna start over just in case I have to, like, republish this. A little bit about me. My name is Katya. I wrote a book called Anxiety in Wonderland. This is just my journey and my story. There are 2 other videos that I've done prior to this video. So this video, we're going to be talking about chapter 2 and 3. If you want to learn more about me and my history, definitely go back to the last 2 videos. I just want to get the ball rolling because I just spent 5 minutes totally having technical difficulties, and I just want to dive in. Cool. So... Yay. Chapter 2 is labeled aggression. You guys hear those weird noises? My animals are like behind me having a fit. Well, let's show. This is Aoki. Say hi. Aoki has a brother named Yuri, and they're just like tussling behind me, so don't mind them. So anyway, this chapter is called Aggression, and it's about a character named Kat. Some of you might actually know me as Kat. I went by Kat in middle school, high school, and college for a couple of reasons. Katya or Ekaterina is really hard for people to say, and I just didn't want to deal with it. And I just felt like I was able to relate to that name much easier at the time. I felt like Katya was like really wimpy and like too girly for me, and I liked Kat more because it's like aggressive and like short. And I think that within itself says a lot about the cat. And the cat, it feels like to me, is like a very much a part of me and who I am. And I think cat was built as like a defense mechanism. And I like put on this like this mask or like this helmet or this shield when I'm feeling like I'm in danger. And I think that a lot of that really comes from this need to protect myself when I was a kid, and not only from like I've talked about my mom in previous episodes, not only from like the criticism and like endless sort of like nitpicking that I had a lot as a kid, but also just sort of the thoughts and the voices in my head of just like how much I sucked and how lame I was. I really needed some voice in me to really stand up to like the like awful, intrusive, anxious thoughts that I was having, and especially like the more like aggressive, more depression-based thoughts about how awful I supposedly was and what a loser I was. And also, it was a character that allowed me to protect myself from like other kids. I moved around a lot. If there's any parents watching, please don't move your kids. Like move them once or twice. Like let them build friendships. Let them stay in the same school system. It's really, really hard on you when you move to a different school every other year and you have to restart your friendships. It's really hard. It really limited my ability to build social relationships, and as a result, I was always the weird kid, and being the weird kid, you get picked on a lot. So the cat kind of came out as like this personality that like protected me, and it was totally just like dealing with the awfulness that I perceived in my life. It was just like a form of protecting myself. And I think that, you know, defense mechanisms definitely protect you, but it evolved into an offensive mechanism. And it started to become an issue when constructive criticism was given to me and I would freak out, or I would have a fight with a boyfriend and I would think that he didn't love me because he called me out on something that I did wrong, and I just told them to like get lost, you know. And those are not healthy ways to deal with opportunities for growth and feedback that you're getting from people in your life that are invested in you and in your happiness. And I think what really came out of the cat was this really destructive personality that it was like protect self at all costs, which was super, super effective. It was also at the cost of destructing everything around me. And then once I blew up, I would have to fix everything. And, you know, it reminds me of something my mom once said to me, which was that it's easier to fix things with like by starting over. It's really hard to fix something that doesn't have a solid foundation, and it's easier to just like be able to like start with a fresh start and you fix it, rather than like you have a system that you're trying to fix, but you don't have like the capabilities of like really like fixing it from the ground up. And I think that there's tons of wisdom in that, and I think the message there is, if you're going to do it right the first time, because it's going to be so much easier to fix it as you go, rather than having to retrofit all these decisions that you had made previously. And of course, this applies to life, this applies to design. But, you know, I was 12 when my mom told me that. She told me that a lot. And I took it as, well, it's easier just to start over. It's easier to just kill everything and start over. And I've always had that sort of mentality. And like every time I moved apartments or houses or lost a friend, I'd be like, fuck it, whatever. Sorry, I'm trying not to cuss. But I'd be like, whatever, like I could just start over. And I would just do that over and over and over again. And it just became this like exhaustive experience of, I was just destroying everything that I came in contact with. And you could see in these drawings, I just was like in this really dark, unhappy place, and everything was a threat. I hated everything. Everything was disgusting. And it started to turn into this self-critical thing where now not only am I being highly critical of and like defensive about everything that's around me, I was now being highly critical and defensive of everything inside of me. So I was like attacking everything on the outside and the inside. This drawing came out when I was really starting to understand neuroscience. Daniel Siegel has really, really great books. He's a psychologist, but his specialty was, I think, in neuroscience as well. Highly recommend it to anybody out there. And I just have this understanding that like I have all these different neurons that are connected in different ways, and some of the neurons in my head, again, this is my interpretation, and this drawing is this vision that I had, which was that I had like good neurons and bad neurons, and like good pathways and bad pathways, and like the good pathways was like, I'm really angry. I'm going to take a couple of breaths and try to channel my anger in a more positive way by maybe screaming into a pillow or, you know, whatever. And then a bad pathway would be, I'm really angry, so I'm going to blow up and tell this person everything that I think about them. And so, and then it turned into this sort of like, this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad. And I just started labeling everything about me as bad and no, this is dangerous. And I guess in theory, it's like, yeah, I'm thinking that because I'm trying to better myself, and I perceive it as a threat. I perceive myself as a threat, so I'm attacking these things about myself, but I was actually making myself really depressed and down on myself, and I kept thinking about like what a horrible person I was. And this body of text is related to this image. I think this is a important page because I think people don't realize that there are patterns of behavior that are incredibly destructive that have like a much deeper meaning. So for me, I slept around a lot when I was in high school and in college, and it was for a whole bunch of reasons. Part of it was just to get out of the house so I wouldn't have to come home. Part of it was because it was a really good distraction from myself and everything that was going around me. And it was kind of like everybody in high school around me at the time seemed like they had, you know, they had drugs or they had sports or they had alcohol or they had friends, and like sex was my thing to get me through the day. And looking back, I really wish I had focused and had like friendships and had focused on my schoolwork and on my future. But because I wasn't equipped to be able to deal with my anxiety and my frustration very well, I just kind of turned on myself, kind of in the hopes of like trying to make myself better, I guess. And ultimately, it just made things really hard to do. I was making things unnecessarily complicated for myself because this anger was the only thing that I knew how to keep functioning. It was anger at my mom that like drove me to like not be in the house, and it was anger at myself that drove me to like excel in college, and it was anger at the people that didn't believe in me, that, you know, encouraged me to like push and be successful in my career. And so, yeah, like, I guess a lot of stuff was getting accomplished, but it was, again, at this cost of this sort of burn everything down and start from the beginning, because that's just much easier than trying to fix the problems of something that I had done. So, you know, when we think about what anxious people are like, and again, like that's why I really wanted to put this page in here. My anxiety wasn't just me biting my nails and being antisocial. My anxiety had me sleeping around because I needed somebody to like tell me that I was like not the horrible lame person that I thought I was. And I found that in the people that I slept with. And I found that fighting with people and dominating them in that way made me feel like I had some control in my life. And it helped my anxiety for a time. But again, like I keep coming back to this. It was like, great, so I have this aggression and it's getting me places, but it was like, at what cost? And ultimately, what ended up happening is I was alone. And I didn't know what to do. And I just had all these thoughts and all these feelings and like all of this anger and frustration and sadness and hopelessness and fear and rejection and hopes and all this soup of just, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to go, I don't know what to do with all of this. And because of my aggression, I was completely alone in this. So I'm going to move into chapter 3, which is alone. And this is the image that comes with it. And it's basically just this sort of moment of like, I don't know which way to go. I don't know what to do. I have all of these signals coming into my brain. And I feel like I'm being torn in a million different places. And all I know is like, I need to do something, but I don't know what I need to do. And I just, you know, my husband who does user interfaces and user experience, his mastery is user experience. He talks a lot about option overload. And I constantly suffered from that. Like I would like always be like playing on a chessboard and I'm like, well, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do this, but I can do that. But if I do this, then it's going to be this and this. But if I do this, well, then I might lose all of these pieces, so I can't do that. And it's just like this endless sort of like looping cycle of like, well, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. But then there's this, but then there's that. And it's like, I would either shut down and be like, I'm not going to do anything, just don't touch it. Or I'd be like, I don't care, just pick something. And I would make uninformed decisions, and then I would be by myself, so I wouldn't even have anybody there to like support me and be like, hey, why did you do that? Do you need some help? Because I didn't have anybody around me. Added to that was being around people is really, to this day, even though I'm incredibly sociable, even though like I can do like this YouTube channel and like talk to my friends on Facebook and like do Facebook Live videos and stuff, or like host parties and speak in front of groups of people and be on stage in theater, being in social situations where there are people around me makes me incredibly anxious. And even though I have a great deal of tools in my tool belt for managing my anxiety, I still will literally like disappear for like 20 minutes. Like it'll be my own birthday party and I'm like, I'm just going to disappear and sit in the bathroom floor for 20 minutes. And I really hope that no one notices me. And like sometimes like people check on me, they're like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. Like I'm just, I'll be out in a second. Like I just don't even know what to tell people because I feel like everybody else seems to like go to parties because they want to hang out, and the people that don't want to hang out don't go to parties. So I'm surrounded by all these really sociable people, and I would just be like, okay, this is fun for 5 minutes and I'm ready to go home because all I could think about is like, is my hair straight? Like I need to straighten my back, and like, do I have any lipstick on my teeth? And like, oh God, like I just like complimented that girl on like this thing, but actually like she really hates that dress and she's got really bad memories, and like I really hope I didn't ruin her night. Or like I said this thing to that guy and like he gave me a really weird look, and like he probably thinks I'm like totally an idiot, and like I'll just be going through all these things and like barely like functioning, and I'm just like, you know what, I just need to hide. And I would like literally just like take off, and it just manifests itself in so many different ways that either I would actively avoid being sociable in that I won't go out because I can't. I don't want to deal with it, or I'm surrounded by a bunch of people and I act like I don't see anybody. And like I look through people and I think what ends up happening is people think I'm incredibly rude, but I'm totally okay with it because if they think I'm rude, they're not going to talk to me. And then if I'm by myself and I'm like putting up this like image of like, no, I'm fine, like I'm cool, just like leave me alone. I'm kind of secretly miserable inside. I think this is one of the best ways. This image is really describing what it was like for me in high school. I felt like everyone around me was having a really good time. People were going to prom, people were in ESB, they were going to parties, they had boyfriends, whatever, and they had like pretty decent relationships with their parents, and I didn't have that, and I felt like I would come home to like, you know, I don't want to make this video about my mom because that was a lot of my last episode. But I would come home to a less than ideal situation at home, and it would take a lot out of me, and I would kind of escape into like the internet and like having my online friends and playing video games. And at school, I just felt like everyone was having such a great time, and I was like dying on the inside. And I don't think there's anything more lonelier than like everybody around you is so happy and like you are not. And you don't even have the heart to like show it because you don't want to be like a downer for everybody else. And I just felt like this combination of like being invisible and like jealous, I guess, but it's like jealous in like a dismissive sort of way. Like, ugh, who needs prom? And then looking back, I see all of these signs that I wish my friends' parents would have said something. I wish my friends would have said something. They get a pass because they're kids. And I really wish my teachers had said something. I didn't get along with a lot of people in school. I had a reputation of sleeping around. There was a lot of instances where like I just was totally okay being by myself. And the way I dressed was like not inappropriate, but like very provocative. And there was just like all these opportunities for the adults in my life to be like, hey, what's going on with you? Or even like I had mono on and off and strep throat on and off and UTIs on and off pretty much all of junior and senior year. And it's not because my immune system is weak, you know? And like, why am I constantly getting prescribed medication for these infections and not have my doctor be like, why are you still, like, why is this a reoccurring issue for you? You don't have an autoimmune disease. You are, you know, very young to be having these reoccurrent infections of two different types. What is going on here? And my mom was just very much not on this planet or paying attention to me. But I feel like if I had been living with my dad, I feel like my dad would have been like, your butt needs to be home at 9. And like whoever I'm going out with, like my dad would need to meet them. You know, like I feel like I had very much that Holden Caulfield sort of like, I really wish somebody would catch me. I wish somebody would notice me because I'm not doing well. And I guess like in some way also like, and I'm still very much this way, it's really hard to tell when somebody who actually enjoys being by themselves is actually enjoying it. And like, I don't know how to describe it, but like a lot of my friends would describe me as a lone wolf. My husband's like, oh, like cat wanders off, she'll come back. And like, I just have this like sort of stray cat vibe. But sometimes like, that's all that I know. And I just, am so drained and like I just don't want to deal with anybody because like I'm actually, it's not because I want to wander off and have a good time because like that's just how I am. Sometimes I'm actually by myself because it takes so much energy to like interact with other people, and like I'm on the verge of like collapsing under the weight of my own anxieties and depression. And it just became this like self-fulfilling cycle of like people don't like me, people think I'm weird, and then I'll say something and I'm so anxious that it does come off weird, and they're like, that was kind of weird, and then I'm like, oh my god, you see, like this is why I don't talk to people. Or I like get so frazzled about hanging out with people, and that already takes up so much energy that by the time I hang out with somebody, I'm exhausted. So of course I'm going to think hanging out with people is exhausting, because that was just all that I knew. And the other thing that I only knew about was, oh, this is the next chapter. We'll do chapter 4 too, right? Yep, chapter 4. Because I was alone with my thoughts, I was never really able to have like an accurate reflection of who I was and where I was at. So this drawing is of me thinking I'm really fat. And I don't think I've ever been able to describe myself as skinny. I've always been a little over like the ideal weight, but I'm by no means like obese. Hi, thank you. My dog came to say hello. Thank you, Stinky. So this chapter is like called Affliction. This is sort of like an atomic bomb going off. Some of these are a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Vague, I guess. So this is kind of how my anxiety manifests itself. And this goes for just in general. And this is actually a miswrite. I wrote anxiety and depression have 3 parts. I really should have just wrote anxiety has 3 parts. Ignore the depression part. So there's mental, behavior, and physical. And they all, think of it as like a triangle, and they all feed into each other. So I'll start to worry, I'll have obsessive thoughts around paying off my bills or my loans. And that makes me feel super, super like frustrated. And then my heart rate goes up. And because my heart rate's going up, things are starting to irritate me more. And like I could just feel like my pulse like throbbing. And I'm just like, then I kind of turn on myself and I'm just like, ugh, like I'm such a hothead and like I'm always like upset about stuff. And so I start to like huff and puff, and like I'll dig my fingernails into my palms. And then I'll like look at that and be like, see, like you can't even take care of yourself. So what's happening is these 3 components of these thoughts, which are then influencing my behavior, which is also influencing sort of what's going on with me physiologically, like my heart rate, or I start sweating. The heart rate and sweating can affect my thoughts, in that I could start getting really self-conscious about me sweating, or behaviorally, like I sweat, so I start doing this to my palms. But because I'm doing this behavior, then I start kind of digging my nails into my hand. And then that's going to start feeding the thoughts, or it's going to start feeding the physical like stuff like body tension. So one of the things that I learned early on with managing my anxiety was that when you're having an anxiety attack I would have sometimes is driving. It was really, really hard for me to start driving, and that is its own conversation. Long story short, I'm on the freeway, first couple months driving, I'm freaking out, I'm gripping the steering wheel, I'm like, I'm gonna crash, 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 oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, this is so scary. And like smashing my hands in it, like gripping super, super hard, my heart rate's up, like I'm like sweating, like my vision's getting blurry, and I'd be like, okay, like the very, very first thing they do is like acknowledge and label your anxiety attacks. Be like, oh my god, I'm having an anxiety attack, this is really awful, and I'd be like, I'm really scared that I'm gonna crash the car. And then you pick something out of that triangle to attack and address. So one of the things that I find easiest is to check if there's any behaviors that I'm doing. And with driving, I'd be gripping the steering wheel. So I'd be like, okay, relax your hands. Like, just try your best to relax. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, the thoughts of me crashing the car, like I'd have to address each thing that I'm like thinking about. Because the physiological stuff, if you're hyperventilating, you could try to slow down your breathing, but you can't really control your heartbeat. You can't control that you're sweating. So I find it's much easier to start with behavioral thinking, and then the physiological will kind of take care of itself. So if I can't address a behavior, maybe there isn't a behavior to take care of at that moment, or I'm like, it's making me feel better to do it, I'll focus on the thoughts and be like, okay, I need to slow down these thoughts. Let's acknowledge them. I am afraid that I'm going to crash the car. What am I doing? I am driving, and then I'll start like looking at what's around me. Because if you're in the middle of an anxiety attack or a panic attack, you may not even like be focusing on what's going on around you. And that's super dangerous to do when it's nighttime and you're driving on the freeway in Los Angeles. So I'd be like, okay, I am driving on the freeway. I am going home. This is the 5 South freeway. My exit is going to be this. I am passing this exit, and there is a white Toyota truck in front of me, and that guy just put his brakes on, and oh, I could see the lights from the IKEA, and like I would have to like not so much ignore the thoughts that I'm having, because it's really important to be like, you have to like have this moment of like, I'm having an anxiety attack. I would like to slow down this process. I don't want to spiral out of control. It's important for me to focus on driving. So I'm going to do that now. I need to relax my grip because it is much safer for me to drive with both hands on the wheel in a relaxed, sturdy position. And I would like to think about the cars and what's around me. And like that would eventually calm me down. And even though the thing that really set that anxiety attack off was me driving, the act of actually driving and focusing on the task at hand was far more manageable because I was like paying attention to it. This is a drawing of me basically like running away from my problems, and that never really did anything for me. This one is a drawing of sort of, I don't know if you guys remember the caucus race from Alice in Wonderland, but it's like this obsessive, like out of control, looping back and forth, and like going over the same thing over and over again distracts you from like the reality of like what's going on around you. The other thing too is like I would always just have stuff looming over me, and I would be so wrapped up in this anxiety and this thing that's looming over me that may not even be real, that like I can't take in the thing that is around me right now. In this drawing, I am in a giant cuddle puddle of my favorite stuffed animals, and you can see the cat is in the foreground. My Mickey Mouse doll, which is one of my favorite toys. And I'm like in this cuddle puddle of all these great little things, but I can't appreciate it. I can't enjoy it because I have this like apparition. I have this like, huge shadow, this like looming anxiety over me. And it would just get so massive and so big and out of control that like it would basically take on its own personality. And like all of my behavior would now be driven by my anxiety. And it would just like get worse and worse and worse. Like I would get into a fight with my husband, and everything he said would just like support my anxiety. Like, see, this is why. And then he would say something and it would like trigger something else, and it would just like be this constant, never-ending thing that just like built upon itself and built upon itself. And it all basically got to a point to where I could not take it anymore. I physically was not sleeping well. looking back now, I think I developed basically a rash all over my body from like the stress that I was putting myself through. I was having these horrible headaches. They weren't migraines. They were like shooting like lightning bolts that would just happen normally. My eyes would twitch. And then I just like wouldn't be able to handle anything that came my way. Like something would happen at work and I would come home and I would lay down on the floor and cry. Or if I got into a fight with like my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, I would just like, it would be something small. I would just blow up. Like I could not get over stuff. And I think I suspect that my nervous system was so shot and so overwhelmed that I would just like it was fried. Like there was no calming me down. There was no nothing because I was always on like my last straw with everything and everyone. And it was so incredibly unsustainable. And all of these fears and the nightmares and the pain and like the physical manifestations would just be too much. This is now, we're moving into, there's one more chapter. There's a lot more chapters, but I think I'm going to end it on this page. This is a drawing of sort of the three main emotions and me like diving in and like dealing with them, because I would have these huge tsunami dreams, and now I understand like under the water, under the tsunami, behind all of that, it was me really having one of three emotions just like bubbling up. And it was either me being really sad, it was me being really angry, or it was me being really afraid. And my anxiety would just like start to build around that. Like I would be really afraid of losing my job because I needed to put myself through college. And my anxiety would spiral out of control around that. Or I would be really angry with my mom. But I can't talk to my mom because if I say something to her, she's going to blow up or she's going to cry and it's going to be this huge thing and I have to deal with it. And like my stepdad's going to get involved and I just don't like it. It'll just like, but I'm really angry. So what do I do? And I would just like go back and forth and back and forth. And the anxiety would build around that. Or I would just be afraid of something. I would be afraid of crashing my car or disappointing somebody, and that would just start this circle of anxiety. So yeah, I think I really want to like stop, but I also want to keep going because I know what the next chapter is. And I do have time. I'm gonna keep going because I feel like it's appropriate to keep going because really it got to be too much and I really reached this breaking point of I need help and I can't do this by myself. So the next chapter is analysis, awareness, and acceptance. And I don't know if I'm going to cover this chapter entirely. Maybe I'll just leave it to here. I lied. I'm going to leave it to here. But really what we're going to start moving into is me taking a look at myself and where I'm at. And starting to question, rather than attack myself and be like, everything is your fault, you're the worst, I was like, why is it like this? And is this the life I want to have? And like, why do I react the way I do? And isn't there a better way? And there absolutely was, and there absolutely is. And thankfully I discovered that quite early. This drawing is a depiction of me with Bastet, so it's like Egyptian inspired, and Bastet is the Egyptian goddess of protection, and I feel like my therapist is like sort of the embodiment of this giant cat, this like wise, protective force in my life, because she had this thing that she would say every so often in sessions. She would say, you know, I'm feeling very protective of you. And I always really loved that we would have these moments where she would preface something that she would say that was not strictly by the books therapy, and she would preface it and say, you know, this is my bias, or I'm feeling very protective of you, and she would give me these moments of her reacting to me as a human being, and as somebody that's known me for some time and is watching me move through something, and I don't want to turn this into a like best practices for therapy. For me, that was awesome, and I loved her, and I really loved that she would do that. And in a lot of ways, I really do think she was my protector, because she would only want to enable me to be the healthiest, happiest person I wanted to be. And I came to her looking for that help. I came to her looking for tools and understanding, and she took that on and became a source of reflection and a source of analysis and just compassion. And you know, when you're in this place where you are so anxious and so alone, the only cure for it is somebody that is invested in you and finding out you and being there for you and helping you find the best path for you. Again, like, I think it's very different when you go to a friend or you go to a parent. They might tell you what you should do, which is great. Sometimes that's precisely the sort of feedback that you need. The thing I really loved about my therapist is I would go to her with what I would like to accomplish, and she would give me options and say, well, you can accomplish this way or this way, and why don't we try this, and let's suggest that, and how can I enable you to go down your journey the way that you need to move through it. And yeah, it really helped me a lot. So I'm really looking forward to going more in depth on that in following videos. And I guess the moral of the story is, you know, when you're dealing with somebody that has anxiety, to bring it back to the 2 chapters that we talked about in this video, when you're dealing with somebody that has anxiety, anxiety is going to manifest itself in a whole bunch of different ways. And if you are concerned that you have anxiety, or if you're concerned that somebody else that you care about has anxiety, don't armchair therapist them. Like, definitely go out, get educated, find the tools for getting that person or yourself to a therapist, to a professional that could give really insightful, meaningful feedback. Because anxiety does manifest itself in a bunch of different ways. Don't think that just because somebody has an anxiety disorder, they're just terrified of everything. Anxiety can be somebody that's really meticulous and everything has to be perfect. Or somebody that can't handle being late ever. Or somebody that flies off the handle over the littlest things. Or somebody that sleeps around. Or somebody that drinks a lot. Like, it's beyond just, I'm afraid of everything, or I'm afraid of this one thing. My parents used to call it stressed out. Like, you're always so stressed. You're so, in Russian it's called nervnaya, nerves. You're so nervy, or so nervous. And it's like, yeah, I have anxiety. Like, hello. Of course, I'm nervnaya because my nerves are fried from being anxious my whole life. So yeah, aggression is a huge, huge part of that. It could be like, you know, when somebody like pokes you, like poke, you might snap. And that was definitely me. That was definitely how I handled it. And then the other thing again, and I think that this would go for anybody going through anything. We are social creatures. And somebody said something the other day to me, which was really funny. They were like, human beings are social creatures, even you, Katya. And I was like, you're right, even me. Because I love staying home, and I could like stay at home and not see anyone and talk to anyone for a couple of days. Like, I'm very antisocial, and like, I really enjoy my me time, and I don't want to talk to people when I'm out in public. And I get tired being around people, and I'm an introvert, and like I'm an only child, and like there's a whole list of reasons of why like being by myself actually really doesn't bother me. But at the end of the day, I'm still a human being, and I'm still a social creature, and I still rely on and thrive and am benefiting directly from being with other people. Being alone is one of the worst things of being anxious or being depressed, because it's so easy to let it take you down the path of being alone. It's so easy to let it isolate you. They say that one of the signs of an abusive relationship is that that person isolates you from the people that care about you. So that's something to think about, is like, don't let your anxiety or your depression kidnap you and isolate you from the people that care about you and the people that you care about. It's not going to help you. It's kidnapping. Don't do that to yourself. If you're feeling really anxious and really depressed, maybe you don't have somebody that can relate. Maybe you don't have someone to understand you. If you are watching this video, I will understand. Reach out to somebody like me. Call your local crisis hotline. Check out Reddit. There's tons of great people out there all over the internet, all over the world, all over your communities that are so kind and so understanding and just want to help you. And worst case scenario, you know, maybe get a puppy. And they will love you through anything. So yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope that this video was interesting and that it helped you guys. And thank you for watching, and thank you for everybody who's downloaded it and bought my book. And check out the link below if you haven't bought it on Kindle yet. It's pretty affordable. Share it with your friends, and yeah, be brilliant. Bye!